What's good, family? Hope everyone's having a blessed Saturday evening or night, depending on where you're at. This is Jared011Green. This is another episode of HBCU Fanatics. And of course, I have my brother, my co-host. Wouldn't be a show without him, Mr. Phenomenal Coach67Sportstv. What's going on, man?
Man, I am blessed and highly favored. Hopefully everyone is safe and warm and everyone is doing well. Everyone that's within the sound of my voice. How you doing this evening, bro?
I cannot complain when I'm blessed, man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But as we're in the off season. Teams are trying to get their roster situated, and it's going to continue to happen because we're in the early stages. Football season just ended a couple of months ago. So, yes, sir, man, and we here to talk about some movements, especially dealing with Andrew Body. Uh, I personally thought, man, he was going to go to a PWI school. He has a talent to start if healthy. But he ended up going back to Alabama State, man. What's the rundown on that, man? What you heard?
Well, I mean, truthfully speaking, despite whatever he did, I wished him well. He has this 1 year eligibility coming up, but he was hurt one of those years at Texas Southern, and he's trying to get an additional year of eligibility. Of course, some people frown upon that. Like this, in certain circles, they're talking about how, like even Tremaine Jackson was saying, like, if you got a bunch of 18-year-olds and you trying to win championships, like it's not gonna happen in 2026 when you got guys like 23, 24, 25, 26 playing college ball. You know what I'm saying? So I think that kind of speaks to his point. But when it comes to body, I think his body of work really, I mean, no pun intended, but really minus like his injury issues, I felt like his body of work was good enough for him like to play like at least mid-major FBS ball or maybe even lower tier FBS ball. From what I heard, he like I guess he didn't get the kind of offers that he wanted. If you look at guys like I think Carson Beck last year before he went to the NFL, Cam Ward, you see a lot of these older veteran guys, even if you look at a guy like Trinidad Chambers, who won a national championship on a Division II, and he almost led Ole Miss to the national championship game on the FBS level. So I think he was looking at like, hey, I had an excellent season. Like I played against UAB the first game of the season, and I put on a show. I think he had like over 100 yards rushing, over 300 yards passing. He was the SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. And I guess basically his, you know, train of thought and his thinking was, hey, I'm looking at what some of these other guys that I could be just as good as. I'm looking at the kind of money they're getting, and I should be able to get a bag too. And like I use Chat GPT, and I talked to a couple people I know. We kind of estimated based on what a lot of these guys getting from an NIL perspective that his net worth was somewhere between 1 million and about 2.5, and I guess he was looking at maybe touching a mil. And I guess he just didn't get the kind of offers he was looking to get. But at the end of the day, I hope he stays healthy. But one thing that kind of caught my radar was the fact that, for the most part, Southern fans been doing a lot of talking. Of course, Jackson State fans are always doing the most. Some PV fans. PV historically has not been a vocal fan base, but since they won a SWAC championship this past season, a few of their fans starting to be a little bit more vocal, not over the top with it, but they're starting to be a little bit more vocal. And for the most part, Alabama State fans were like as quiet as church mouses. However, once Body came back, I've seen a few Alabama State fans, talking about Big Bama State, we back, woo the woo, and like we're gonna do some damage, and basically this one post I saw was saying that Andrew Body gonna go on his revenge tour, and he gonna run through the SWAC. And me and Jay Good and I, we was talking behind the scenes, salute to Jay Good, the third unofficial member of the HBCU Fanatics, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And basically he was like, he and I was talking like, all right, Andrew Body gonna run through the SWAC with whom? Like, you and I was talking about this earlier in terms of, Eddie Robinson, he's synonymous for, being able to recruit and this, that, and the third. But truthfully speaking, Body kind of was the glue of the team. This past year, there were more offensive minded. In the past, they've been more of a defensive team. But for all intents and purposes, all the elite level weapons on offense, Carl Ligon, I can't think of the receiver name. Like basically all the heavy hitters they had offensively, once Body jumped in the portal, pretty much their team has been decimated. So to me, unless he go grab a bunch of like guys to fill holes in the transfer portal, I don't see them being the same kind of team they were last year. And of course, you got the major piece once you got an elite level quarterback. That solves a lot of the issues. But I think just him alone is not going to carry them where they need to be. I think Coach Robinson need to go in the portal, and he need to basically fill all the holes they have and get the starters that they're missing. Because, truthfully speaking, if you put him back with Alabama State and just expect him to put the team on his back and go from that point forward as is, I don't think you're gonna make it. I don't think you're gonna be able to survive the teams like Jackson State and Prairie View, and even somebody like Southern is elevating. So at the end of the day, it's gonna be imperative that Coach Robinson go out and fill a lot of holes.
Yes, sir. And another person who pulled uh, himself from the transfer portal is defensive back Cam Salas. He did, he one of the ones, that those many players, Jackson State players who jumped in the portal. Um, he just put on Instagram he's gonna run it back as of January 5th. So shout out to that young man. So a lot of players decide, you know what, it. I think my opinion, they noticing there's teams that do want them on the roster. But I think they're honest with this. Say, you know what? I'm probably not even gonna start, or I'm gonna be a rotational piece, and I don't want that. I might as well stay at Alabama State or in this young man case Cam Salas, Jackson State. Um, in my opinion, that's smart.
Yeah, because I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'd rather get 50 bands and be all world, all universe at Southern Jackson State, Grambling, Alcorn State, UAPB at a SWAC or MEAC school, as opposed to getting 150, 200K and going to I don't know, maybe like a Montana State, going to a UAB, going to a University of Houston, a Tulane, a Louisiana Tech, a ULL, going to a team like that and just sitting on the bench and not really being featured or being used at all. And you got to realize, especially that's how really Pete Richardson really was able to make them runs in the SWAC. You have it wasn't the whole team, but you had a few guys that have come over that transferred from LSU to Southern. They might have been buried on the depth chart at LSU. They transferred to Southern, and those would be the couple pieces that'll put Southern over the top at that point in time. So back in the day, guys rather, play and start and be all world in a SWAC as opposed to being buried on the depth chart at LSU and getting money and getting perks and this, that, and the third. So it goes to show you how today's day and age has changed. Let's keep it a buck. There was no NIL back then, but guys were getting money under the table. I was surprised when one year WEFB did a special and they was talking to Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes, I had classes with him at Southern. And basically, not so many words, he said, like, hey, you get the LSU, they pretty much give you whatever you want. I'm thinking to myself, I'm surprised WEFB let that play when they when they did their special in terms of Southern trying to win a SWAC championship. Woo. And I'm like, dang, so he pretty much, in not so many words, said, hey, yeah, you get money under the table and you get whatever you want when you go to LSU. So let's keep it a buck. Like those Power 4 schools, even back then, was giving the players money under the table. We knew this. But now it's out in the open. But the thing about it is yeah, it's out in the open, but I'd rather be all world in a SWAC than be buried on the depth chart at, at a PWI, at a Power 4, in the SEC or wherever, To each his own, but that's my preference. You on mute, bro?
I sure am. My bad. I am on mute. But what it do, 86 Ghost, man? Thank you for coming in. Always supporting, bro. Another dope content creator. Make sure y'all support this brother, him and Jada6 and Big Reg, man. They have a dope show every Friday and on his channel as well. But yeah, I agree with you, man. I definitely agree with you. Uh, these young boys want to play. They don't want to. They don't want to sit behind anyone. Like the older players did back in the day, man. But
But I want to ask you this before we transition to the next topic. What are your thoughts on Body going back to Alabama State, and do you think him and himself is enough, or do you think Coach Robinson need to go out there and find the requisite piece to surround him with
I'm
to get
glad.
back to where they were?
I'm glad you reintroduced this question because we talked about it behind closed doors. I absolutely think you need to put since he's doing uh uh he's want to run it back with the Hornets, so he wants to win. He knows he can win at Alabama State, in my opinion. I don't know the young man's mindset of why he went back, but I think he knows he's a better fit at Alabama State. So with me saying that, uh, Robinson Jr. needs to do his thing in the portal, which he normally does on the defensive side of the ball. But in the offense, he needs to make sure he rebolstered that offensive line. Make sure he get weapons. He lost the run, the running back, and needs to make sure the running game is up. Uh, so it won't put any pressure on Body. So you need to make sure he brings a running back that know how to grind yards, run in between the tackles. Uh, but Robinson is one of the best coaches in the SWAC, so he knows what he needs to do. But with me saying to answer your question, don't mean to be long winded. If you get the talent around Andrew Body, he'll be straight.
But the thing about it is, Southern been making a lot of noise. Jackson State been making a lot of noise. Curve, you been making some noise. It's not a whole lot of movement going on in Alabama State. Do you think by Thursday he gonna be able to grab all the players he need to grab out the portal? That's the question.
If he hasn't got the players by then, or by now, excuse me, and then like you said, he only has a limited time, then it's not gonna look good. But I haven't, I don't have the list of players in front of me for Alabama State.
Well, this is what I'm saying. National
So we don't
Signing Day.
know who he has. Um, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, National Signing Day is coming up. National Signing Day is on Wednesday. So basically what that means is he only has a few more days to do a lot of shaking and moving. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not saying they're gonna be value bad or nothing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, when you got an elite level player, and that's one thing about Body, I hope he stays healthy, the entire season. But even with that being said, you got Tayshawn Smoot as your backup, just in case things don't pan out. But even with that being said, uh, you know, that roster was decimated after he jumped in the portal. I'm talking about in terms of offensively, like we say in the past, Alabama State has been like a defensive team under Eddie Robinson. But this past year, there was more of an offensive team because, you had Andrew Body, you had Carl Ligon, you had weapons on the offensive side. So how you going to replace the players that you lost? And then not only that, can they be as good defensively as they were in the past? If they can have the offense they had this past season, and he could have the defense he had like the last few years, a few years ago, I think if he could marry those two things together with Body staying healthy the entire season, yeah, they definitely could win a SWAC championship, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. And you're right, man. I'm not seeing a lot of movement. I'm on the on three rivals website. Um, so offensively, the only person I see has committed is a young man named Dylan Vickerson, from Fairburn, Georgia, wide receiver, 3-star, transfer from Western Kentucky. Uh, that's about it. And of course, this is not concrete. Coach Robinson Jr. may have done more. It's just not. You don't hasn't put it out there yet. I don't know. We don't know.
And see, the thing about it is, Jay Good and I talked about this earlier. You know, right now, since National Signing Day is rapidly approaching, you got teams like Southern, like Grambling, like Jackson State, like PV, like these teams have kind of gone stealth mode and they're kind of gone quiet because, you know, I've been noticing it, when it comes to like, teams like Southern, like Jackson State, like some of these bigger schools, when they see that some of these SWAC schools are on a certain player, like some of these bigger schools poach them, you know what I'm saying? Uh, and it kind of seemed like, a lot of these SWAC teams have gone quiet like the last couple, maybe like the last week or so. But the thing about it is Alabama State hasn't been making any noise just in general. I mean, at least at one point, like we know Jackson State lost like 25 players. But at the same token, they turn around and they probably gained about 25, 30 players. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Uh, and of course, we know, Tremaine Jackson, he really been doing his thing in terms of, getting a lot of players, whatever the case may be. Southern, I think they're approaching somewhere between 25 and 30 players. But there hasn't been a whole lot of movement with Alabama State.
Can I be honest with you, man? And
Yeah.
I'm looking at on the same website, and lot of people who like to research the recruit. You gotta have to be careful with these recruiting website like Rivals or On3, whatever the case, whatever source you use, because a lot of these coaches don't want to let everybody know their business until it's later on. Because I know for a fact, Coach Marshall Falk, because a coach, he's been doing that good job recruiting, and I'm
Yeah,
on.
they've been doing a good job recruiting, but they've been moving in silence lately. Because of the
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, because I'm looking on. I'm on Southern's uh, recruiting information, and it's not updated. So we don't know until the coaches put it out there, if they want it out there.
well, I think when it comes to Southern, when it comes to like the Zion Chris situation like that, I think they kind of been going more stealth mode lately because you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, you can't blame young men for trying to get the most value that they could possibly get. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of is what it is. But Zion Chris, he was supposed to come to Southern. He ended up going to Tulane. R.J. Johnson the third. You know, I heard from a pretty reliable source that he pretty much was almost committed to Southern. And guess what? Massachusetts swooped in at the last minute, and he ended up leaving and going from FAMU to potentially going to Southern, and he ended up going to Massachusetts. So I think some of these, bigger schools have been swooping in and getting players. So I think, and then just Southern. I mean, I noticed like Grambling, another team, like they really kind of been moving in silence lately. So at the end of the day, I think That's pretty much the approach for some of these SWAC schools. Because despite what people might say, you know, HBCU players at this point, we talk about it a lot on this particular show. Man,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these Power Four schools, they're using SWAC and HBCU schools to add depth to their roster. We've seen players like Jackson State players, uh, like Muhammad Miller, he going to Syracuse. You know what I'm saying? Like Travis Terrell Jr. Going to Purdue. He going to Purdue. He going to Syracuse. And we've seen teams basically use like the SWAC as a breeding ground to increase the depth on their roster, and not just the SWAC, but I mean just the lower level schools in general. So many kids have been moving up from like D2 schools to FCS schools, and like I said with Trinidad Chambers, he went from D2 all the way up to FBS Power Four. You know what I'm saying? So a lot
And
of these
that
schools.
former Grambling linebacker with Ole Miss Andrew Jones, and he was balling out.
Yeah, without question, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, we could give multiple examples, we talked about Trey Lane, of course. I ain't gonna say we had a falling out, but I'm just saying, when I was like, hey, I think he should have stayed at Southern as opposed to transferring to Indiana. This was before Indiana made the playoffs and won the national championship, but he transferred to Indiana and then he left from Indiana and went to Eastern Michigan or whatever. So in many instances, those schools uh they use SWAC and FCS schools to, you know, bolster the depth on their roster.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So when I hear it's always all people, man. HBCU players just ain't that good. Keep thinking that. Tell these PWI schools that keep stacking their roster with some of these HBCU players like Jamari Taylor. I think he's gonna lead his drafted from in drafted. Uh, he went from North Carolina Central to Virginia, and he was a big part of their offense. I mean, he balled out. He balled out with Virginia. So come on, man.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I hate those kind of narratives. Like basically like HBCU football is lower tier football, and that's cap. You know what I'm saying? You got if you look at the NFL, some of the best players historically have come from HBCUs or whatever the case may be. So knock it off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
don't listen to the Corey Holcombs and everything because you know the ugly side of HBCUs is maximized um, in the media when it's even 10 times as worse in these PWI schools. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the issues in these HBCUs that happen for closed door needs to be fixed and it needs to be addressed. So that's why I wasn't mad at Ed Reed when he did what he did, but at the same time, um, that doesn't that doesn't negate the fact that there's a lot of young men that goes to these HBCUs that can ball.
yeah, and I mean even if you look at somebody like Malachi Bailey, I think even him, it might have been in his best interest to stay at Alcorn, but he left from Alcorn and he went to Arizona. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I wish he would have balled out like I felt like he was capable of, but nevertheless, these players they leave from SWAC and these BCU schools and they go to Power Four PWI. So at the end of the day, like knock it off. You know what I'm saying? And I think hopefully this year in the NFL draft, like we see some some players come out the SWAC or just even the HBC realm in general, whether it's the SWAC and the MEAC or whatever, whatever the case may be, I saw somebody uh, uh like a Kelby Givens, Jay Good sent me some footage of him grinding in the lab, you know what I'm saying? And, many people in his situation, they would try to come back and see if they could would they, try to apply for that one last year eligibility and jump in the portal and basically try to go chase the NIL bag. But he like, nah, I'm trying to go to the league, you know what I'm saying? Even if you look at somebody like Vince Sullivan, he the same way. I mean, I haven't seen clips of him like grinding in the lab like Givens, but Sullivan was hurt, a good portion of this season. So at the end of the day, like the two of them, like they're not even trying to come back to college. They're just trying to go to the league. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't blame a lot of these young men, but even though we don't have all the information, man, but I'm going to ask anyway. Who do you think is from what you heard? Because your ear always low to the ground. Um, from what you heard, and you talk with Jay Good behind closed doors. Who's doing a better job? Who's doing a better job in the recruiting so
Uh, I,
far?
I think it's hard to say because he and I talked about this earlier. You know, we talked about Southern, and you know, part of it was I picked Southern to win the West this past season was because they won the West the previous season. In the West, like I'll probably see like the last handful of years, it has been down. It's been the weaker division between the SWAC East and SWAC West. But truthfully speaking, like last spring in the last recruiting cycle for me, it was kind of fool's gold. You know what I'm saying? I thought
Hmm.
like, hey, they're doing their thing, they're doing good. They got, Jalen Woods is gonna be healthy. They got Jamari Jones, they got this, they got this and that. They got, a couple players coming in from here, a couple players coming from there, a lot of JC players coming in, but it was all fool's gold, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And when you look at players like at one point, every dude that had a chance to get Andrew Body, he need he need to look at him.
That's crazy.
What Rohan Davis' son name is the linebacker that went to he went to McNeese State and then he ended up transferring to UTEP. Hey, what his name is, Terrence Graves didn't even consider him, and he wanted to come to Southern. So when you think of these type of things, Southern, they've done, they've done a not so good job the last couple of years in
Micah
terms of
Davy.
yeah, Micah David. Yeah. They haven't done such a great job in recruiting, and I was kind of fooled. So I have kind of like a wait and see approach, but just looking at, what I've seen, from people like Architect TV, shout out to him. We done reviewed some of his clips, I, and J Good on, you know, it wasn't HBCU Fanatics officially back then. It was still on the Southern Baller Show, but we, used some of the footage and, some of the highlights or whatever. And basically, you know, Southern is doing good. Jackson State is doing good. Prairie View, Arcard and other people, they're doing like real, real good.
With my research, I'm hearing Florida A&M is doing good, and of course Jackson State.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the reason why, of course, they was gonna be next on my list, but from when I'm still hearing PV, like uh Tremaine Jackson brought in a ridiculous amount of players. I think if we just going on sheer numbers, from what I'm understanding, I think Tremaine Jackson brought in more than Southern and Jackson State. But of course, PV, Jackson State, Southern, FAMU, and then of course Grambling, they haven't been getting like the volume of players that you might think, but they've been getting a few sneaky good players from like power four, power five PWIs. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, it kind of remains to be seen. But from what I'm understanding, like PV, JSU, FAMU, that's kind of like the teams. It's kind of the top of the heap from a recruiting standpoint.
I'm not even hearing, and people, what I'm about to say, well, duh, they're not that good, but I'm not hearing anything from Mississippi Valley. Terrell Buckley, he from what I was hearing his interviews, he's committed to trying to turn that program around. Of course, he had a rough season, which we all predicted, because trying to turn the Delta Devils around, that's a uphill battle, bro. Um, and we talked about it, but
In depth, we talked about it. Yep.
and yes, sir, and um, looks like he picked up a cornerback, Prince Ujimia from Oklahoma, a edge rusher named Adonis Jackson from Utah State, and then Mika Norris, a 3-star. So he doing, but you're not hearing it. So hopefully, and that's a that's a and hopefully he's doing well and he's quiet. But yeah, I want the brother Terrell Buckley to do well, man. But
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Some of these players, for the most part, when they commit to a university, they putting it out there on social media. A team like Southern, they've been getting a good mix of both high school players and players from the portal. You know what I'm saying? So they kind of been mixing it up. Some teams, like we said, they kind of been keeping a low profile or whatever. Because I'm not gonna lie, like a couple of these players have been getting flipped. You might have one player commit to this school, and then they decommit and they end up going to another school. You know what I'm saying? And we already talked about how like Jackson State had this player or whatever, and he was basically he was like, hey, I'm not hitting the portal, and then guess what? He decommitted, and he ended up not. I'm not. Let me phrase it. Not decommitted. He jumped in the portal with like a day or two left in terms of the transfer portal window or whatever. And before the portal closed, he jumped into the portal, and he ended up going to another school. And Jay Good sent me this this thing behind the scenes. This guy, this guy was basically saying how basically with the days transfer portal in the NIL is like wild wild west, right? And basically the guy was saying like he was playing for this team. He didn't want to put out like the schools that was actually like trying to like basically was tampering with him. He was saying like early in the season, he played well, and the team was struggling, but he was playing well, and he was saying that they was coming to the games and kind of making it known like, look, hey, we trying to get you with the woo, and of course, they were sending him messages behind the scenes and this, that, and the third. So when Jay Good always talk about the lawlessness of this current era, in terms of like just the blatant tampering, like it's some teams are just bold with it, and I think that might be the reason why some of these schools are kind of keeping a low profile. But National Signing Day is quickly approaching. It'll be here this coming week. At that point, ain't nothing really for you to hide in terms of kind of playing your cards close, trying to play your cards close to the vest. You're gonna have to put your cards on the table, and people gonna see what you're working with or not. So I think at that point we can make a better assessment. But even with that being said, until they actually start playing, until they break out the balls and they start kicking off and start playing in September, we really ain't gonna know what teams really working with now. But those handful of schools I told you, it seemed like they're the ones that's trending in the right direction, though. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, man. Yeah, so I'm already ready, eager to see what's gonna happen this new season, man.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I say, I don't want when it comes to Southern, I don't want to jump out the window like I did last spring. But based on just the kind of the caliber of players that they've been getting, and some of the footage and this, that, and the third, I think Coach Falk is doing a good job. I think the only thing Southern is really missing is that elite level experienced quarterback that could potentially be like the SWAC offensive player of the year, SWAC offensive MVP, that type of thing. I think aside from that, it seemed like for the most part, they pretty much been plugging a lot of holes, you know what I'm saying? And, they got, I think, a little bit over, like right at 30 commits or whatever. So, a lot of these schools doing good. Like I said, Jackson State, PV, FAMU. Grambling, they don't have the same volume as these other schools I just named, but they've been getting some quality players on both sides of the ball too.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm hearing. And when I said that as far as Coach Terrell Buckley in Valley, it's been quiet. Actually, you can shout out to the Blue Blood and another content creator named Common Man. If you into football, if you into especially FCS ball, you know who the Blue Bloods is. He's been doing content regarding FCS play, especially HBCU, for years. So he's actually doing a series. He's done a series with Coach Darrell Buckley, and he's been on there doing the interviews of how his first season went and the ups and downs. So y'all make sure y'all go over there and check that out. But yeah, man. I'm just eager to see how these rosters are going to turn out. And I'm also going to be excited for Southern. Southern had a historically horrible season, but with Coach the new coach Marshall Falk, and what we're hearing, he's doing a damn good job recruiting. As far as what we hear, we got to see the product on the field, as my brother JB would say. You got to put them pads on. Um, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Shout out to
Yeah,
Jay
without
Bar.
question. Without
Shout out to
question.
Jay Bar. Salute, Jared, Coach, and Chad. I appreciate you, man. Um, but yeah, man, it's that's what I appreciate about the new this new generation of, as far as the transfer portal. It's giving these young kids the opportunity to start, and then I commend people like Andrew Body, and then the defensive back from Jackson State. They're man enough to be like, oh, you know what? This might not be the right choice, or I may not get the money I think I'm gonna get, or whatever the case may be. They're swallowing their pride and just going back to their school. I like shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, big facts. I mean, if you're not getting what you want out there, then why not be loyal to who got you to where you are? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, sir, yes, sir, man. But let's see.
You want to talk about schedules real quick?
Yes, sir. Let's talk about schedules.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Like a lot of these schools, they dropping these schedules early. I talked to a coach at my school, and he what he like to do is like compile a schedule early so he could make plans. You know, and hey, he going here, he going there. Just to give you an example, Alabama State, they just dropped their schedule on August the 29th.
Damn.
Uh, in Birmingham to kick off the season. They're gonna play against Southern. Then after that, on September the 5th, they're playing against Lane College. On September the 12th, they're playing against Troy. On September the 26th, they're playing against Valley. On October the 3rd, they're playing against Bethune-Cookman. On October the 10th, they're playing against FAMU. On October the 17th, they're playing against UAPB. On October the 1st, they're playing in the Magic City Classic against Alabama A&M. On November the 7th, they're playing against Texas Southern. On November the 14th, if Coach Robinson could fill them holes, it'll be a huge game between him and Jackson State on November the 15th. I mean, on November 14th. On November the 21st, another big game against PV. Uh, the Turkey Day Classic, they're playing against Tuskegee right around Thanksgiving. And then the SWAC championship game is on December the 5th. So, Jay Good and I was talking about this behind the scenes also. That's their schedule in terms of uh, Alabama State. But some of these teams, they rolling out their schedule early. And what Jay Good was saying is, he don't like Southern. Southern kind of been known for being like the PBC for all our LDBC family members from the standpoint of they like to roll out their schedule late. You won't give your fan base and fans time to make all the necessary arrangements. That's why I was telling you. I was talking to one of the coaches at the school, and basically he look at how Southern is on different teams' schedule. Some of these schools that roll out their schedule early, and he used that intel like to put together what he thinks Southern's schedule is going to be, and as a result, like he could start planning early because when you got people, because I'm gonna give you an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
He flew to Daytona to go see Southern. Of course, they played in the rain against Bethune, and they got the brakes beat off him. But he actually flew to Daytona. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, like you got that type of loyal fan base, and you got people like that that's gonna fly from Baton Rouge to Daytona to go and support the team. Like, hey, you need to, roll your schedule out early so people can make the necessary arrangements.
Yeah, that's actually I like what Coach Robinson Jr. did. get the schedule out earlier. So, like you said, your loyal fans can make the adjustments they need, get the trips, hotels, whatever they need to do. Um, now, the only thing I saw for Southern, because I was looking through while you were talking, I was looking for the other teams. I didn't see their schedule. Houston already got y'all set on for
Yeah,
September. Houston Cougars, September 12th. Hopefully y'all put up a fight, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
yeah. Well, like I said, it's the reason why I was saying talking about coach. You know, like for example, FAMU another team. You know, he saw that FAMU gonna play against Albany State on August the 29th. They playing against South Carolina State on September the 6th. They playing against the U. Oh my goodness. On September, I think what this is, September the 19th. The way they got the orange and white writing is hard to make out. They
Okay,
playing
who's
against
this again?
FAMU.
Uh,
So let me see. That is September the 10th. He told me this. He said they're playing 2 games in 1 week. They're playing against South Carolina State on September the 6th, and then they're gonna turn around and play against the U on September the 10th. That is insane, bro.
that's crazy.
Oh my goodness. Then on September the 19th, they're playing against Tennessee State. They're playing against Alabama A&M on September the 26th. They're playing against Alabama State on October the 10th. On October the 17th, they're playing against JSU. On October the 24th, they're playing against UAPB. They're playing against Southern on October the 1st. October the 31st. They're playing against Alcorn State on November the 7th. They're playing against Mississippi Valley on November the 14th. They're playing against Bethune-Cookman on November the 21st. And that's pretty much it for their schedule. And of course, the SWAC championship game is on December the 5th. So
Dang,
for the most part,
Grambling
huh?
got their money game same day as yours. September, y'all Southern September 12th against
All right.
TCU.
All right. Who they playing against?
TCU.
Ooh. Well, at least they're not playing against Ohio State again this year. Like, that
Yeah,
was a bad look. I mean,
that
don't get me
was.
wrong, you got a bag, but you had to get the brakes beat off you to get that bag, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, I guess I got to make the money somehow, but this has been going on for years, though. So
Yeah, I
it
mean,
is what it
don't get me
is.
wrong. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you got to take a tail whipping to get a bag, but I don't want that tail whipping to cross certain lines. You know,
But you
if
know what? And I don't mean to interrupt you. Just to like
no, you
how,
good, bro.
like how North Dakota State played Colorado and other teams in the past, FBS schools. And I mean, I'm talking about rank. Almost played. I remember they played Iowa one year and almost beat them. I mean, I can recall a couple of years they did actually beat some FBS teams. I want to get. I want SWAC and MEAC teams to get to that point where they, they may get beat, but they're
They putting up a fight.
beating. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is, yeah, I agree with you 100%. But I'm gonna give you an example, right? Not this past season, but the previous season, right? Uh, Nickel State played against. They played against LSU, and I think LSU was only beating them what 24, 26, 25, 26, something like that. They gave
Hmm.
LSU a dog fight. Then they came to AW and they beat the brakes off of Southern, but they didn't do nothing the rest of the season. So I don't want it to be a point where, yeah, you give this team a good fight, but you don't do nothing the rest of the way. I want you
Oh
to
yeah, I can't stand teams like that. You get up for certain
for
teams
certain
because
schools, yeah,
that the light spotlight on y'all because you're in danger of getting blown out, but you're not consistent with the entire schedule. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing about it. I mean, you know, Nichols is synonymous for that, especially when it comes to Southern. You know, there were years where Nichols didn't do nothing the entire season, but they'll get up for that Southern game, though. You know what I'm saying?
Coach can't stand Southland schools, bro.
Oh
What
no,
up,
I'm not
Jada
gonna lie.
Six?
Nichols is at the top of that list. And the thing about it is, the crazy thing about it, Senior went to Nicholls State. He didn't go to Nicholls State by choice. He went to Nicholls State because even when I went to Southern, just to kind of give you an example, I know I'm long and I can ramble on, but I'm trying to make this brief as possible. When I went to Southern, the tuition at Nicholls was, I think, like $300 to $400 cheaper than it was at Southern. And then in addition to that, like for me to, I had my own car, but for me to go to Southern, I had to ride to Donaldsonville to catch a bus that would take you to Southern. Whereas the bus for Nicholls State, because Nicholls State is probably about 20 to 25 minutes closer than Southern is to where I'm at now at my mom's house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Nicholls State bus literally passed right in front of the street. So, at the time, I know, of course, this was like a huge gap between the time I went to college and the time my parents went to college. So, out of convenience, literally, my grandmother told my dad, "Hey, you better take your black behind and walk to the head of that lane." You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
he walked to the head of the lane and he hopped on the bus and that bus went down there to Thibodeau. You know what I'm saying? And he couldn't stand Nicholls. I can't stand Nicholls. I inherited from him, and of course, part of that was some of the struggles he went through while he was at Nicholls. But in addition to that, Southern was always in his heart, and of course, my mom actually went to Southern. And then my mama told me, it got to a point where he spent so much time at Southern that a lot of people thought he was a student at Southern too. You know what I'm saying? So he didn't graduate. My mom did, but it still ended up working out for him in the long run. But at the end of the day, he had a strong stand for Nicholls, and I inherited that. You know what I'm saying? And of course, not this past season, but the previous season when they came to AW and they beat the brakes off of Southern. I beat Nicholls home, you know what I'm saying?
Just so Coach say all say all that to say this. If y'all next year or this year, if you see a Southland school beat any HBCU team,
Yeah,
could
I'm
be
gonna
the
be pissed.
SWAC or MEAC, just know Coach somewhere pissed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. But what else we got?
I talked about a couple of the team schedules, and more than anything in terms of the schedules, the schedules look good, and like I said, you don't want to be like the PBC. You want to kind of give your fan base time, to do some planning
Yes,
and
sir.
and get things in order. But one other thing that kind of caught my eye, like I said, Jay Good and I, we do a lot of talking behind the scenes, and I saw uh Coach White. I saw his basically them talking about his story in terms of him his journey in terms of trying to becoming the head coach and this, that, and the third. Since this on IG, we ain't got to worry about fair use or whatever. I'm gonna play this clip real quick, and just him crying and just the adulation of him finally becoming the head coach at alma mater. I'm gonna play it real quick.
All right.
Thank you, brother. I flew up here. That was my first business. So I had business to set up at Jackson State, Southern, and Graham. But Howard was my first visit. And I flew up here. Where the bookstore is at, that was the Howard Inn. So we had our own hotel. That's what all those retreats did. Yeah. They had the presentation for the recruits upstairs. And they was just coming out for National Black Championship. And Jay Walker was up there talking about how Howard changed his life and how he came from California and stuff like that. I said, man, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that. And that started the Howard deal. Jay and Pep and Doug, like, thank you, brother. All right. I know what he's going through right now. It's like coming home right here, baby. Hey.
So basically, he talked about from a crew standpoint. For people that don't know, Ted Sweet Flight White, he is from Baton Rouge. You know what I'm saying? So he was supposed to go to to Grambling to well first Southern Grambling, Jackson State. So, that was his first visit, and he ended up going there. You know what I'm saying? And now he's finally become the head coach at his alma mater, and basically the fact that he's become the head coach at his alma mater, he talked about his entire journey, basically coming there as a player and that being his first visit, and him kind of taking that Jay Walker path, and then in addition to that, how excited he is, to go back home and be the head coach and get to work. So at the end of the
Jay
day,
Good, what up, brother?
man, salute to Ted White. Man, salute to the brother, Jay Good, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, he the third unofficial member of the HBCU Fanatics. A lot of
Yes, he
conversations
is.
we have on these live streams, conversations we have with him behind the scenes, you know what I'm saying? But that Ted White story, it was a touching story in terms of, his journey there as a player and now to go back there as a head coach.
Yeah, man. That's people don't know how hard it is to become a head coach, even when you're very knowledgeable and you're maybe a good coach. So, shout out to that brother being a head coach of his alma mater. Um, Also, we talking about transfers. We forgot to mention former Penn State quarterback Bakem Kritzer is now at Alabama A&M Bulldog. So, what's your opinion on that?
I mean, I'm happy for these young men, as long as they do what's in their best interest and everything kind of pans out for them, whether it's coming from a PWI Power 4, Power 5, to a SWAC or HBCU school, more power to them. Hopefully they can do their thing. Or if they leaving a SWAC or HBCU school and they going to a Power 4 PWI, either way, I want these young men to do what's in their best interest, whether that's, getting them an NIL bag or getting the extra year eligibility, whatever the case may be, whatever, and they deem what's in their best interest. Because, like I said, I'm gonna use the Kel to give an example. A lot of people think he crazy for not trying to get that extra year eligibility and maybe going to a bigger school and trying to get a bag. But he not really. It seems like he's just content on, trying to make it to the NFL, and he's in the lab grinding and working as we speak. So at the end of the day, people gonna do what's in their own best interest. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. And it's smart to do so.
Yeah.
Smart to do so, man. But Coach, I think we're gonna wrap it up here, man.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but let everybody know where they can meet you and see you, man.
You could catch me uh at Coach67Sportstv on all social media platforms. However, I am primarily here on YouTube. I was supposed to drop this video earlier today, but was kind of busy, because we got some very cold weather down here in South Louisiana. Right now, where I am is currently 20. Let me see how cold it is. It's pretty cold out here. It's 27 degrees where I'm at. So,
Mm.
I've been kind of, trying to stay warm more than anything. But you can catch me on my YouTube channel. Uh, I might drop some content on tomorrow, but more than likely, I'll probably do my season finale at a tailgate party on my YouTube channel. And of course, early on today, our brother, the General 78 Sports TV, and myself, we had another edition of our wire analysis show. And tomorrow, of course, here on your channel, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the Southern Baller Show. So, we
Yes,
trying to
sir.
get out the mud and we grinding, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Even if you catch the replay or you just coming in late, please make sure you hit the like button. But I appreciate all the support. Make sure you share and subscribe. I'm trying to get at least get it to 500
Man,
subs.
we going to 1,000 and beyond, you dig?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the plan, but bit by bit.
Yeah,
But
take it one step at a time. Ain't nothing wrong with that, bro.
yes, sir. Nothing wrong with that at all. But also, y'all catch us like Coach said tomorrow. 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, Southern Bowler Show. And then next Thursday, we will try to have an episode of HBCU Fanatics around 7:30 if our schedules are not crazy. But this was another good episode, man. Y'all have a blessed evening or night, depending on where y'all at. Y'all be blessed.
Peace.